Friends, today we are going to discuss the Saccavibhanga Sutta, the exposition of the truths from the Majjhima Nikaya, the middle-length discourses of the Buddha. Actually, we'll look at the first two truths today. The Buddha refers to the first sermon, the rolling of the wheel of Dhamma, and tells the bhikkhus that the Venerable Sariputta is able to, now I'm quoting from the text, announce, teach, describe, establish, reveal, expound, and exhibit the Four Noble Truths, which the Buddha himself explained at the first sermon. After the Buddha left, Venerable Sariputta said, the first truth is the noble truth of suffering, dukkha. The second noble truth is the origin of suffering, nirodha. Samudaya. The third noble truth is the cessation of suffering, nirodha. The fourth noble truth is the way leading to the cessation of suffering, magga. These four truths should be dealt with in four ways. That is, the truth of suffering, dukkha, has to be fully understood. Now look at that word fully. That means not the way that we understand in the superficial way, but fully understand the truth of suffering. Then the next one is the origin of dukkha or suffering has to be abandoned. Cessation or nirodha has to be realized. The way or path leading to the cessation has to be developed. So those are the four words that you have to remember. Fully understand the first one, second one, abandon, that is the craving. Third is to realize, and the fourth is to be developed. According to the Visuddhimagga, or the path of purification, these truths are called noble or Arya because they have been discovered by the noble one. That is the first reason. The Buddha, because the Buddha has discovered these truths. Then second, because they can be fully realized only by the noble ones, such as the Buddhas, Pacceka Buddhas or silent Buddhas, and Arahants. So we too, if we realize, will be noble or Arya. The third reason is because they are real and deal with reality. So they are universal. These truths touch our lives at every point. Not so much the external world, but our internal world of the mind. The Buddha says that it is because of not understanding and not penetrating these four truths that you and I have wandered through this long course of samsara. The Buddha also says, both formally and now, it's only dukkha that I describe and the cessation of dukkha. Dukkha is the awareness of the lack, awareness of the lack, or the awareness of the incompleteness of existence itself. The thirst or yearning for sensual enjoyment, generally unfulfilled, is the cause for the prevalence of dukkha. It's called a thirst because it is something that does not end. These truths are not only facts about suffering, but also the ways to end the suffering and gain pure happiness. One can teach them to others, but they have to be practiced by each individual skillfully to find the solutions to their problems. The four truths are the Buddha's diagnosis or identification of the human condition, its solution, and how they should be dealt with. The Four Noble Truths are four aspects of the same problem, so that if one were to understand the first truth, suffering or dukkha, the others would follow naturally. As all Buddhist teachings have to be first understood, then practiced, and then realized. Venerable Sariputta continued, the noble truth of suffering is, now I'm quoting from the text, is birth, aging, death, sorrow, lamentation, pain, grief, despair, and not obtaining what one wants. In short, the five aggregates of suffering, of clinging, are suffering. Now we'll take each one separately. The ones that Venerable Sariputta talked about. Birth or being born is painful for both mother and child. It means the coming together of the five aggregates and consciousness inside a womb, and after the appropriate time, coming out into the world. Having been born, one starts the decaying process. The word jara means not only aging, but also decaying. It has been said that decay begins at birth, and this is true. Though the process of growth and renewal at first disguises the process of decay. Though the cells in the body die, they are renewed at first. So the decay is not clearly seen. Decaying is seen only when it becomes the dominant process. That is, the renewal is slow and sometimes not at all. Decay means the unwelcome changes that happens with time. That is, the falling apart that happens to everything which is put together. This is dukkha for one who grasps at the body as me and mine. We see it in three ways. One, the body doesn't work as well as one wants. The limbs don't function well, and the internal organs break down so that food cannot be digested and cannot excrete or urinate. The second reason is failing of the senses. 5 senses, they fail, especially sight and seeing, sight and hearing. Decline of the mind, meaning thoughts are unstable, for we see it, and the inability to understand even ordinary things. You know, that's happening to us now. This dukkha is common, for we see it among ourselves. We try to cover up, camouflage as it were, the deluded mind. Any form of disease, that is the next one, disease, is dukkha, whether it affects the body or the mind. People dislike to talk about their sicknesses. This is partly rejection of the unliked and partly the ego that is crushed due to the unfulfillment of one's wishes because one wants to be healthy all the time. The Buddha advises, now this is for people when they are healthy. The Buddha advises, think like this, now I am healthy and able to practice the Dhamma. When disease comes, I may not be able to do so. Therefore, I must practice. Though we think of birth as the beginning of life and death its end, these two processes take place all the time in both mind and body. The mind is a succession of momentary experiences arising and passing away. When we see the decay in the body, an attitude of unattachment can be cultivated so that at death we'll be ready to accept it, not fight with it. The Visuddhi Magga, or the path of purification, I referred to it earlier too, says sorrow is like the cooking of oil over a slow fire. Lamentation like it's boiling over from the pot when cooking over a quick fire. Despair is like what remains in the pot after it has boiled over and going on cooking till it dries up. See that nice simile. That is, when you keep oil on the fire, if it's a slow fire, then it is like sorrow. If it is a quick fire, that is the strong fire, then it is like lamentation. because it spills over. Then when, after it spills over, there will be very little left in the pot. And that is compared to despair. That little bit will just go on till it dries. So these are the three ways of people suffering: sorrow, lamentation, despair. Now there is frequent dukkha too. Frequent dukkha, having to associate with the disliked and meeting unwished for people or animals or disagreeable things at work and in daily life. Separation from the light is when we get attached to people, animals, and things and have to part from them so that our greed is not fulfilled. As everything is impermanent, this can happen frequently. Unless we train in the Dhamma, not getting what we want will be dukkha, for wishing alone cannot provide us our needs. The Buddha says, Sankichena panchupadana kanda dukkha. Briefly, the five aggregates are dukkha. That is what Buddha says. Here, the Buddha has identified that suffering is caused by clinging to the five aggregates. Not the five aggregates themselves that give the suffering, but our clinging to the five aggregates. This clinging has four characteristics. One, thinking that sensual pleasures will give maximum pleasure and happiness. Clinging to habits and practices, thinking they will provide security and well-being, and even heavenly rebirth. Third, clinging to views, believing that they will purify their minds and make them better. 4, clinging to the belief in a creator and a permanent soul. Now, these are the normal ways of clinging to the aggregates. Our existence depends on the five aggregates. The five aggregates actually do not bring suffering or dukkha, but because we tend to grasp them as me and mine, that is called upadana, is the source of suffering. Buddha and the Arahants do not grasp these aggregates as theirs, so that they do not experience the dukkha or suffering that we mortals undergo. Our suffering is caused by identifying ourselves with what is impermanent, anicca, with what are not under our control, anatta. Excuse me for about 2 minutes. We were talking about anicca and anatta because our suffering is caused by these two things, anicca and anatta. The totality of suffering, dukkha, are shown as physical and psychological pain, which is termed dukkha dukkhata. Now look at that term, dukkha dukkhata is the normal pain that we have. Secondly, sorrow due to change is known as viparinama dukkha. Change, not only our bodies change, but even circumstances change. Even happy times are suddenly interrupted by some unhappy situation. Thirdly, sankhara dukkha is the suffering due to being formed. Our bodies are formed of little cells and little atoms and little bones and so on. So, being formed, right? That is sankhara dukkha. And it can be called constructed and also conditioned. This is due to grasping the five aggregates. Because we grasp the five aggregates thinking they are me and mine. The Buddha realized that the understanding of both mental and physical pain was the way to get rid of it. Because if we understand the pain, then we know what it is and it will be easy for us to get rid of it. How? He also saw that pain and ignorance feed on each other. Due to ignorance, pain comes. Because of pain, there is ignorance. When the mind becomes aware of how pain occurs, it's possible for us to find skilled ways of reacting to the pain. Now, while meditating, if we stay with it, seeing that it's impermanent, the pain will vanish after some time, giving way to happiness or joy, because the fact that we have won over the pain will bring joy into our minds. One needs faith, that is saddha, energy, virya, mindfulness, sati, concentration, samadhi, and wisdom, panya, to keep the pain at bay. The Buddha has compared a being's problem of existence to a person who is pierced by a poisoned arrow. Now you see all our problems. Now Buddha is talking not of one problem, but of all the problems that we face. Buddha compares that to a person who is pierced by a poisoned arrow. This simile points out both our condition as well as the solution needed to solve it. Also, when faced with a problem, what one should do and what one should not do. One should not waste time asking silly questions like, now in the case of this simile, who shot the arrow, his name, caste, etc. Many questions, I just took one or two. Also, how foolish it is to insist that the arrow should not be removed until all those questions are answered. Now it's very like, certain people asking questions like, did the Buddha actually walk on the 7 lotuses when he was born? Was Buddha so tall, as it is said in the, commentaries and so on? Those are unnecessary questions. What is important is, as Buddha said, suffering, the way of getting over the suffering. These questions have no connection to the present problem, and the patient would die before all those questions are answered. Now, another thing is, now you can see how important these 4 Noble Truths are, because immediately after giving this simile, the Buddha explains the 4 Noble Truths. For the Buddha, the most pressing question is the pain and the suffering that human beings undergo and their cessation. Those 2 things are the most important things for the Buddha. That should be ours too, though we are not so very particular about it. This is a quotation from the Anguttara Nikaya, or the numerical discourses of the Buddha. Now this is not so much for the lay person, but for the ordained, but it can pertain to the lay person too, or any Buddhist, anyone who wants to practice the Dhamma. One lives the spiritual life under the Blessed One for the purpose of knowing, seeing, attaining, realizing. And penetrating what one has not known, seen, attained, realized, and penetrated. So we learn the Dhamma, we practice the Dhamma. In order to do this, what is that? To get to know, to see, to attain, to realize, and to penetrate what we did not know, what we have not known. What is this? This is the 4 Noble Truths. Okay, now that is the first Noble Truth, suffering. Now let us look at the second Noble Truth. That is the cause or origin of suffering, right? Origin of dukkha. The Buddha traces suffering to its roots within our minds. That is, to craving, clinging, and the ignorance of the true nature of things. Since suffering or dukkha arises in our own mind, the cure has to be found within our minds by abandoning the defilements of greed, hatred, and delusion that we have gathered through many, many births. The cause of suffering is self-centered craving. Are these things that we cling on to actually worth holding on to? When the mind clings to an object, it feeds on it, for it gains nourishment from sensory pleasures, possessions, relationships, recognition, status, etc., etc. This is done to make up for the biting discomfort and sense of emptiness inside us. Now, craving has three forms. First is sense desire, kama tanha, a kind of bottomless, blind thirst for the good things of life and seeking more and more enjoyment. Because people think that by or through the sense pleasures that we could gain maximum pleasure. Second is the desire for existence. We say that we want to, finish off. We don't want to live again and again. But it is there, that want, that craving for existence. Bhava tanha, to be born again and again in better circumstances. Even the person who is enjoying the most wealth and most, things in this world wants better things. Then the third desire is for non-existence or vibhava tanha, when life becomes unbearable, that one thinks at death, one's personal existence comes to an end. Because of that understanding, thinking that it will end here now, they finish off. That's called vibhava tanha. The human body is not an entity, but a process. The mind is too constantly changing. All the time the mind is changing, just like the body. We can see the mind changing, but we don't see the body changing, right? It's a never-ending flow of sensations, perceptions, volitions, and states of consciousness. All these together are known as nama or mind. And the other part, that is the physical part, is called kaya or nama and rupa, right? Because these happen so quickly, the sensations, perceptions, volitions, consciousness, all these come together very, very quickly. It's only the Buddha who could separate them and tell us. We cannot see them so well. So you see, because they happen so quickly, one after the other, they have a unified appearance. To bring suffering to an end, we have to see the real nature of the aggregates. The Samyutta Nikaya, that is the collected discourses of the Buddha, says the roots of ignorance should be extricated. The Buddha's teaching, the Dhamma, is to train the disciple to willfully awaken the four factors, that is the four truths, by bringing them together to fruition, that is to the culmination of each truth. Find liberation from suffering. I like to tell you or say a verse from the Dhammapada. This well illustrates the point that we have been talking about. Tanhaya jayati soko, tanhaya jayati bhayang, tanhaya vippamuttas, natti soko kuto bhayang. From craving springs grief. from craving springs fear. For one who is wholly free from craving, there is no grief, much less fear. Think about it. You will see that this is quite true. Now, the Buddha uttered this verse to a certain Brahmin whose crop was destroyed by the flooding of a river. So he heard the Buddha's words and a transformation took place in his mind. He understood that his despair was not caused by his loss, but by carrying the image of the ruined and desolate paddy field in his mind. All the time he was carrying that image in his mind. So that is why he was so full of despair. Even we do that. All the, when something happens. For while the rice was growing, his desire and craving also grew. And all those hopes and desires were defeated and frustrated. Hearing the Dhamma, instead of looking at the ruined field, he searched his mind. He saw that under the image that he was carrying was craving and tanha. He saw it, you see. This is what is termed yoniso manasikara, to see with wisdom. This Brahmin, who was not a disciple of the Buddha, attained stream entry or sotapatti phala. Today, the whole world is facing a great calamity. Like the Brahmin, we too could turn this misfortune into a blessing. Ultimately, what we save are only the lessons that we learn from defeat, misfortune, and failure. This example proves that vipassana jnana or insight knowledge is not the privilege of one section of society or the intellectuals or degree holders, etc., but is in the direct meditative observations of one's own bodily and mental processes. This is a blessing in disguise. Thank you. So, now it is the time to ask questions if you have any. Now today I have a very special meditation. So please sit down to meditate. Okay. Please close your eyes. May the Buddha guide my thoughts and actions throughout the day. May the Buddha guide my thoughts and actions throughout the day. May the Buddha guide my actions, my thoughts throughout the day. May the Dhamma help me to be strong in moments of weakness, brave in times of trouble, and calm in the face of changing fortunes. May the Dhamma help me to be strong in moments of weakness, brave in times of trouble, and calm in the face of changing fortunes. May the Dhamma help me to be strong in moments of weakness, brave in times of trouble, and calm in the face of changing fortunes. May the Sangha inspire me to act with kindness, patience, and forgiveness in my dealings with others, including those who are unfriendly to me. May the Sangha inspire me to act with kindness, patience, and forgiveness in my dealings with others, including those who are unfriendly to me. May the Sangha inspire me to act with kindness, patience, and forgiveness in my dealings with others, including those who are unfriendly to me. May the Devas, deities, protect me and my family. May the Devas, deities, protect me and my family. May the Devas, deities, protect me and my family. May the Arahants and the Bodhisattvas, Buddhas to be, guide me in my daily life. May the Arahants and the Bodhisattvas guide me in my daily life. May the Arahants and the Bodhisattvas guide me in my daily life. May this country be blessed with peace and prosperity. May this country be blessed with peace and prosperity. May the whole world be blessed with peace and prosperity. May I have the opportunity today to help someone in need of my love and support. May I have the opportunity today to help someone in need of my love and support. May I have the opportunity today to help someone in need of my love and support. May the Buddha be at my head, the Dhamma in my heart, and the Sangha at my side to protect and guide me always. May the Buddha be at my head, the Dhamma in my heart, and the Sangha at my side to protect and guide me always. May the Buddha be at my head, the Dhamma in my heart, and the Sangha at my side to protect and guide me always. May all living beings, including my enemies, find peace. May all living beings, including my enemies, find peace. May all living beings, including my enemies, find peace. Namo Buddhaya. Namo Buddhaya. Namo Buddhaya. Thank you all so much, all of you. May the Triple Gem bless you.